Hello and welcome to the Human Frequency. We're sorry if you were expecting a live stream last week. We kind of took a week off from that just because it wasn't working to do it that way. But we're going to try this little premiere function and see if that works. Hopefully it will. Hopefully YouTube will not mess with the broadcast and we'll be able to interact with you as we normally would during a live stream.
Well, we'll be able to chat along anyway. I really loved answering questions live, but YouTube does not like us talking about the things we talk about. And we've been through this a lot. This is why we started the Odyssey page and the BitChute and stuff like that. Just alternative places to have our videos because our topics are obviously no-no topics a lot of the time with YouTube. And last time we were talking about controlled opposition. So anyway, hopefully this will work. If not, just come back to our channel and look for the uploaded video. And yeah, we're going to continue trying to do this for a while. Well, the other day we went down into the city, and I used the term city loosely. We went to Bakersfield to do our errands, and it was interesting to me. It's becoming a little easier to go into town. People in California are not obsessed with masks like they used to be. They're not as tyrannical, especially
not even in Los Angeles County.
Not even in LA. But we've been
which
going.
Bakersfield is not, but still, it's one of those things where you just kind of hope that as time passes by and the COVID hysteria just kind of dies down, that it will be a little more normal. And that does appear to be happening in most places.
Yeah, we've been opting for Bakersfield because we live directly between Bakersfield and LA anyway. So I just noted a few interesting things, few little slices of humanity and how things go on planet Earth. Some of them confusing to me. For example, I don't know how somebody's perfume can end up on me when I'm keeping a 6-foot distance from them. But I come home from Bakersfield from shopping, and every time, somehow, I've taken someone else's smell home with me. I don't know if anybody knows how that works. How does the perfume travel through the air and stick to me? I would be happy to know how that works and what I can do to defend myself against it.
Cologne, too. Cologne does the same thing. And it's very bad for us because we're both very sensitive to those really strong, concentrated odors. We can't have them, but they inexplicably will cling to you.
And they followed us
even
home.
Though you have, like she was saying, there's no physical contact. It's not like you're hugging someone. It transfers that way. That would make sense, but it just leaps from one to another.
It's a mystery. I didn't even go into Ulta, so I don't know where it came from, but man, did I smell when we came home. So that's a strange one to me. I don't know how those things travel or why anybody would want to do that to themselves, to have that much aroma on them.
The other interesting thing that happened was we're in the supermarket, and I don't know if any of you have noticed, but the quality of mainstream music these days certainly leaves a lot to be desired, and that's putting it very nicely. But we're in the supermarket in this just ungodly, just total AI robot. I hesitate to even call it music because that really does the word a disservice. But for lack of a better term, this music is playing and there's this robot that's singing to it. And you said something.
I asked a question to Gabe. I said, because I kind of heard this song before when we were shopping, but I never paid attention. And I was listening. I'm like, did they sample a human voice and then use computers to make it sing? Or is there not even any human voice behind this? It just was like, it sounded like a robot singing. So I was like, do they even sample human voices anymore? Or is it just computers?
Computer generated in every sense of the word. And 3 seconds after you said that, this young woman just walks by us. She couldn't have heard what Sharon was saying about that, but she walks by and she's singing along with it.
Yeah, immediately after I said that, she starts singing along. So I bring this up. I bring this up. Well, it was human singing, I think, to AI. But the thing is, I bring it up because this really illustrated how extremely controlled by AI the humans are. The tracking devices everyone carries, the energy weapons everyone carries with them that they think are very convenient communication devices.
Your smartphone.
They listen to everything you say. And what I think is that it picked up what I said and immediately programmed the user to do its will, which was to enforce the terrible music. It was almost like it was saying, "Nah," That's like the AI saying,
having their equivalent of a tantrum.
It's silly, but I do really think that illustrates how extremely controlled by AI the people are. I notice it all the time. People don't even seem in control of their actions. So that was very strange. And the other thing I noticed was that I had to come back for a refund because I was charged the wrong price on something. And I went up to the checker and showed the receipt and the item. And she said, "Did you pay credit or debit?" And I said, I paid cash. And she was almost shocked, like, "Oh, okay. let me take care of that.
What is this cash?
And it was strange because it does show
We
me.
always pay cash.
Always. And I hate to use plastic for anything because we don't want any debt. We don't want to be surprised by it later. I don't want a bill. I want to be able to pay for the food I can afford. So anyway, even debit, I don't prefer it. I prefer to I like it to not be on the radar. It's all, under the table. Why should anybody know what we're buying for dinner? So it just brought to light a few things about just the general state of humanity and the unconscious state that people live in. I mean, controlled by AI, dousing themselves with chemicals and going into debt over groceries. These are very...
And dousing themselves in harmful frequencies, and not just from the phone, but this terrible computer-generated quote-unquote music that everyone's listening to.
Mm-hmm. It's mind control.
It's just...
It dumbs us down.
It's bad from every angle, and that just contributes to just the general direction that humanity is heading toward.
Well, in financial news and e-commerce news, it's very important for everybody who's doing any sales online to know that there's a new law in effect. It's a new tax law. It's called, what is it called?
The American Rescue Plan Act.
Yes, and this American Rescue Plan Act, what it entails for any of us, like us, who sell things online, is that you cannot dodge taxes anymore. Now, we're not tax dodgers. We do everything legally, and we teach you how to.
And we don't advocate tax dodging either.
But what this law does is it makes sure that nobody could ever dodge taxes again. So all e-commerce sellers online now who generate more than $600 in income, for all of them, a 1099-K will automatically be generated, and it's automatically sent to the IRS and the state taxation agency.
Yes. So previously it was 20,000 and 200 separate transactions. Now it's just $600 annually. So basically anyone who is earning a living off of e-commerce, this absolutely applies to them now. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be impossible to... obviously, a lot of people were doing this before. This smacks of... The gesture just smacks of being a total crackdown on people dodging taxes by way of their e-commerce store.
Right, and it's going to make things a little more difficult for sellers. I mean, everybody was really supposed to be reporting it anyway. I mean, now we teach you ways that you can run your business legally by registering it properly, and it can be tax exempt. However, most people are not capable of understanding this. So, we talk about it as much as we can, but you're going to really have to be savvy if you're going to be able to do that. And otherwise, be very aware that if you're doing sales online, that it's all reported now and there's no escaping. But I will say that I think there must have been a lot of people not paying taxes and not reporting, because if the 1099-K is not generated, it's all done by computers. The taxation agencies have no way of knowing. And, a lot of times you can go into your settings and look at your account and all that stuff in your e-commerce, and you could see if one was generated. And for something like where I was just using it only for invoices and it went well below the threshold, it didn't generate one automatically. But now there's no way out, because anybody who's making an actual income, like a living off of it, it will be. And I think a lot of people were dodging because I noticed, and this was funny, on our e-commerce plan, all of a sudden, after this law went into effect, they really improved the offline payment features a lot. Like, I'm realizing that a lot of sellers probably said, well, we better start taking checks and other things because we can't have everything being reported. So why would they suddenly improve the offline features on our e-commerce plan?
That is noteworthy. What's also noteworthy to me is the way in which they stealthily snuck this in. There was no announcement about this. I just happened to see an article on Forbes. I wasn't even looking for it. I was looking for something else entirely, and I just stumbled upon this article that explained that this new thing was being enacted and took effect as soon as 2022 began. So that was really, really weird to see how quickly they sprung it on people. It's like as if they're trying to trap them. Just here you are going along thinking you'd have up to $20,000 to accrue, and suddenly boom, you get caught with your pants down, figuratively speaking.
It did go very quickly and subtly, and I noticed the news articles on it were from back in March of 2021, yet we didn't hear anything of it.
Not word one.
The payment processors that we use on our website did not send us email notifications. They always send.
Yeah, and we pay attention to this kind of stuff, so if they made any announcement at all, even a small one, we would know about it.
Yeah, they didn't let us know. And when you go in and look at the terms where, you can look on their sites under the help sections and all these things about how the 1099K is generated, they still have the old way in there, and they added this little box over it with the new way, but they left the old one there, which makes me wonder, is this a temporary change, a permanent change? I'm sure it's permanent, but it's very strange that they still have the $20,000 and 200 transactions listed. Then underneath it in a gray box, they say, well, now it's going to be...
But they still have the old thing that no longer applies up there. The whole thing was very weird. And I can't stress this enough. We talk about this many times on our show. We get a lot of emails from people that want to just basically not support the system, but get all the benefits of being in that system. And it just doesn't work that way. Most people, you should just keep doing things the way you're doing. The legal name registration, the assumed name certificate, returning to God's kingdom, all of that stuff, it's not for most people. And
well,
that's
returning to God's kingdom is.
Well,
it should be. It should be. That's all I'm saying. Most people won't, but it should be.
In Marcus's very first video, he says the reward is so great that most people will not be able to claim it. And it is an able thing. It has to do with our ability to comprehend what we've done and to comprehend the solution to, because it's not a quick solution thing. A lot of people just want that fast solution. I feel like I've talked about this for like the 40th time in the past month, but people want a quick solution to their problems, and this is not that. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, I think if you're going to now returning to God, I think that everyone has the potential to do that. That's all I was saying. And I hope they do. As far as canceling that legal contract with Satan, I don't think most people have the capability to understand what they've done and take care of it on that end. I mean, even Marcus didn't know how to do it on that end. He threw out everything, all his IDs and documents, but the government still had their copies, which was the problem for him. But what we do isn't for everyone. So in telling you that this is now going into effect, many people make an income online. That's just to be aware that this is what's happening now. And if you are able to comprehend the assumed name registration, then this is a way that you can run a tax-exempt entity. However, there are many things that you would need to be able to do that. First and foremost, you absolutely cannot be a user if you want to do this. I can't stress that enough. Mm-hmm. And I know people think they can, but they can't. Your brain will be destroyed. It takes this incredibly sharp mind to even be able to decipher the tricks. And the tricks are everywhere. Every piece of paper I ever have to fill out, you wouldn't believe what they do to try to trick you. You have to be so careful with everything you say and everything you sign, anything you agree to.
Yes.
And you know what, this thing is just not for everyone because you don't want to screw it up.
You can be a user and do this just like you can be a chain smoker and run a marathon while chain smoking. It's just not possible.
Yeah, you have to have an acute awareness of the tricks because this is a major deception. And the reason we pay taxes in the first place is because we've been deceived. And I paid taxes my whole working life until a few years ago. And, it's always very important to stay on the up and up with everything. And you can't break the law because it will come back to bite you. There's no tricks. There's no shortcuts. And long websites with lots of legal mumbo jumbo telling you other ways to be a slave, like to become anything that says to be a national, a citizen,
sovereign.
Anything that's telling you to run the show. You're a sovereign, you're ruling yourself, you're a member of a country, all these things. You could do all that stuff, but then I suggest if you do that, you do everything else you've always done, including paying your taxes, because that stuff does not get you out. So I just wanted to make that clear that this is very difficult to do, but it can be done. But you do have to be very sharply aware of what is being done to deceive you.
And patient. You have to be patient when learning these things. You have to go through our videos about business and law and look at all of these things and look them over again. You can't, it's not like a pop quiz and you look at it once and you're done. We've watched each one of Marcus's videos at least 24 times, at least. And as soon as we finish, we go back through them again because we learn new things each time.
We're still learning.
And it's just like that with everything we talk about. And business is impersonal and it's serious. You have to be assertive, you have to be patient, and you have to be confident. But that does not mean argumentative.
Right. This is not about showing up cops and judges and all these things that people claim to do, which they don't. It's all lies. They're all shills. The only thing that you can do is either do it normal, like you always have. That'll keep you out of trouble, or really, really understand the assumed name certificate and live it. But if you can't live it, you can't do it.
You gotta live it.
You gotta live it.
And if you can't, anyone who cannot do all of those things, every one of them, to the fullest, and grok it, and live it, and know it in here, don't do it. I'm serious. Don't do it.
No.
You could end up hurting yourself or someone else that you love.
And I would say, back when we put out the name and identity videos, which I suggest you go back to, there's no harm in doing it, but trying to use it if you don't understand it won't work. If you want to do it just to separate yourself from the legal name so that you can't be forced into a vaccine or anything like that, which isn't going to happen anyway. It's illegal. They can't do it. But if you have those kind of concerns, yes, I understand why not do it, but trying to use it, be very, very careful. You got to know. I mean, we have already gone through these things we know how to talk to and how to legally deal with the reported income. Let me just put it that way. If it gets reported, you're going to have to, either it'll be no problem because the state taxation agency understands that it's a business, or if they don't, you're going to have to explain it to them. So if you have to explain it to them, you better know what you're talking about. That's all I have to say about that. Anyway.
Let's move on. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. There's a lot of volatility in the markets now. We've been talking for good 3-4 years about the housing bubble specifically, but preceding the bursting of the housing bubble is the stock market bubble, and I think we're starting to see the beginnings of that happening right now. This week, as a matter of fact, a lot of stuff changed this week. Well,
I don't know much about stocks because it's a fictional thing I don't really understand. What I do understand is houses and precious metals. Those are tangible items, things of wealth, of value, of that what you have, it's there, it's tangible, as opposed to just numbers in a ledger. So the stock market never made any sense to me. But from what I'm hearing is it's a very, very bad time to be involved in it. And I think that, the media is trying to defray that a little bit and get people to stay involved in it. But right now, everything is so volatile that the only thing that seems stable to me would be gold and silver. I mean, if you already have a house has intrinsic value. You know what it's worth. But, not everybody can afford a house, especially in this market. So right now, gold and silver seem to be the best bet for anybody who wants to have a storehouse of value, because the American dollar is not doing well. We have 7% inflation. We have a $30 trillion national debt that is not good for the value of currency.
And it's only going to get larger because it can't go away.
And something very important that I learned from Mike Maloney of goldsilver.com, and you can check him out on YouTube. I highly recommend Mike Maloney. Just type Mike Maloney and you'll find him. He has amazing videos. He puts one out every week, in fact, even more than once a week. He puts out a lot of videos and keeps you up to date on these markets. And when he talks about gold and silver, I understand it. When he gets into the stock market, it's very hard for me, but I'm not involved in that. But we do have gold and silver. That's what we did with our extra money when I had a good job before we became Organite gifters.
Beep, beep, currency.
Thank you. It's currency.
That's kind of an inside joke. Mike Maloney corrects people who say money. He just has a little honking noise that he plays when he edits it. He puts that in there and just says currency.
Right.
Because the main thing that got us into Mike Maloney years ago was that he explained the difference between money and currency. That was one of the things that he did very early on.
Well, before becoming an Organite gifter full-time, I had a good job. And I made enough extra every month to put a little away. and we would buy gold and silver with it. So that's our future. That's what we have for our retirement. And the thing is that silver is great. Anybody can buy it. So we mostly bought silver because if you don't have much income or much currency to spend, silver is amazing. Right now, I think it's about
23.
It's $23 an ounce.
Maybe 24.
Yeah, so
no more.
Anybody can buy it. So anyway, Mike Maloney said something that was very important that really helped me to understand things better, because we always talk about real versus fictional, right? Like God's law is real. God's constitution is real. Man's constitution and man's law is fictional. People made it up. There's something else that's being made up. So we have price versus value. Price is made up. It's fictional. Value is real. And Mike Maloney explained that, and it made a light bulb go off over my head, because think about it for a minute. Let's say a house has $100,000 worth of materials to make it. And let's not even think about the neighborhood. Let's say in the most average place. So it's not going to go up a lot based on location, but it's just an average house, $100,000 worth of materials. But the price tag on the house is $300,000. But the house is only worth $100,000. So the price is $300,000, but the value is $100,000. So I would say the house is overpriced. So this is something that I know it sounds simple, but it really helped me understand it.
But the value either doesn't change or it changes very little. It actually technically goes down over time because the house is exposed to the elements and it's getting weathered, and you're using it. The pipes, the electrical, all that stuff is getting use, and it wears away gradually with use. Not a lot, but
it depreciates.
Some, and you have to put in the adequate care necessary to maintain that so that it doesn't completely fall apart.
So let's say you have that $100,000 house, and that's the price is $300,000, but that can change. So the price can change, but the intrinsic value, it doesn't change or it depreciates, like Gabe said. So this is a volatile market. It seems very, very unsafe to buy real estate right now. In fact, Peter Schiff, who is another economist that we like to listen to, he advises against any U.S. investments right now, which means houses and stocks. He says it's because of that national debt. These things are losing their, I would say, value. Some of them lose value, some lose price. Stocks are fictional, so they lose price and value. There's no intrinsic value in stocks. And likewise, there's no intrinsic value in cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency has been touted, and not just by the independent media, but now by the mainstream media. Crypto
it's totally mainstream.
Is touted as a hedge against inflation, but it is actually gambling, because now people have made a lot of currency with crypto. They have invested in it and gotten huge returns when it was booming, but it's very dangerous to get involved in something intangible that the value can change. So I know a lot of people really enjoy cryptocurrency, but I've noticed this huge push in the media now. And they've got these women salespeople on the news shows, and they're supposed to be pundits or researchers or economic advisors. They're getting these like 32-year-old, like kind of millennial, no offense,
none taken.
Bitcoin bimbos. They're getting these hot chicks to try to convince people to buy Bitcoin. And you got the hot chick on one side and you got Peter Schiff on the other side. You got the stuffy old guy saying Bitcoin is not an investment, it's gambling. And then you got hot chick saying, buy Bitcoin. And then a guy's watching go, oh, she's hot, I'm going to do what she said. So I just think that...
In other words, no one's going to listen to the 50
the guy who knows something
guy, who's wearing a suit and knows what he's talking about. They're going to listen to this bimbo that doesn't know anything.
And so I saw the interview on RT where it was Peter Schiff. There was two newscasters that were also brain dead millennials. No offense to our millennial friends. But these guys are not very experienced. Let me just put it that way. Younger people, not very experienced. And Peter Schiff he's much older. I think he's somewhere around.
He's pushing 60,
he's been in the markets for a long time. He really knows what he's doing. And he does not like cryptocurrency. And the newscasters on RT wanted to give the little lady the last word. And of course she says, buy Bitcoin, and then
She says it exactly like that.
And then Peter Schiff he just gets it in anyway, gets that last word in there, because she says something like, investors are concerned. And he says, no, consumers are concerned. Investors are clueless, he said. So really, there's this huge mainstream media push towards cryptocurrency right now. That's a huge, huge red flag. The mainstream media is pushing real estate, they're pushing stocks, and they're completely just pushing gold and silver under the rug. They don't want us thinking about it. But gold and silver are actually performing very well.
They certainly are. The crypto thing is not fringe. It's not even close. I mean, they just renamed Staples Center, the arena for the Lakers and my LA Kings hockey team, to Crypto.com Arena. This is mainstream, and I mean this kind of advertising has happened before. I mean, their old arena, the Forum, in Inglewood, back in the late 80s or early 90s, they renamed it the Great Western Forum for Great Western Bank. Then Great Western Bank went insolvent sometime in the 90s, and then it got named back to the Forum again. But this sort of thing has happened before, but this should really just prove to anyone that crypto is not an independent media wacko fringe thing anymore. Mm-mm. This is being touted by everything mainstream.
Yes, they really, really want you in that market. Mm-hmm. Why do they want you in that market? They want you to lose everything. We are headed towards another crash like what happened in 1929. It will result in another Great Depression. I think we're already in it. We're at least in a recession. And they are really trying to get people in right now. And Peter Schiff says,
luring them with low interest rates.
That's another thing. Doing. And Peter Schiff says, don't buy the dip, because what happened before the crash of 1929, and again, Mike Maloney's channel has an incredible video on that. Go to his channel. I don't think is that from about a year ago? I'm trying to think about, maybe we'll find it and put it in the description line. But it's an in-depth discussion of what caused the crash of 1929 and how that all happened. And we're looking at very similar circumstances today. And what Peter Schiff says is don't buy the dip. So what happened in 1929 is the stock market started to crash, and it didn't go all the way down. It then started to recover. And when it just was lower but recovering, everybody jumped in, and then boom.
And then in April of 1930, and basically for the next 2 to 3 years, it was that they show the graph of it. It is just a straight line down.
And people lost everything. And I know that's what's happening now. They want this to happen. They're getting everybody in right now into these volatile markets with all of these dreams and promises. But it's very, very risky, because already when you're working for currency, which we all do, that's devalued just in itself. It's just you're getting something that has no intrinsic value for your labor. And inflation is at 7%. And you see prices going up everywhere. So your labor is worth less and less if you're working for currency. Then on top of it all, they say, well, in currency, yeah, of course, the American dollar has inflation, and you need a hedge against inflation. You need an investment. So the mainstream is pushing really hard to get you into an investment that will make you lose even more. I mean, it's set up to fail.
It is. And the point is, it's just a great way to steal from you. It's nothing else. You have something that has absolutely zero intrinsic value and can be manipulated at will. That I don't understand why anyone gets into that. It's gambling. It's
I don't understand the stock market, and if you're interested in that, then Mike Maloney and Peter Schiff understand it way better than we do. But I definitely don't get involved in anything I don't understand, especially stuff that doesn't have intrinsic value. We would like to have a house someday of our own. But again, that's something it's out of reach. It's really stupidly overpriced right now. And we still are sorting out things about that to understand how it works, because real estate is also a scam in itself. I know it is. I know there's no way on earth to own a house. I do know that. But you got to live somewhere. So we're still researching and learning how that all works. And we rent our house. And really right now, that is the safest bet. But that's another problem. If you live in a place without rent control, we're seeing astronomical rent increases. I hear about it, especially in Texas, stuff like 30% increases. I mean, it's very unjust. So across the board, we're seeing injustice in housing. And I know they're taking advantage of people who can't buy. And I think that that's partially just built into it, because if the rents keep going up, the mortgages start to look better and better. The interest rates are very low right now because the Federal Reserve is artificially keeping interest rates low. they're keeping them so low because they want to get everyone locked in right now to a mortgage at a low interest rate because it's very appealing.
Yeah, and meanwhile you have the mainstream media promoting scarcity that does not exist. Housing shortages. There is no shortage of housing. We just in our neighborhood alone, we have a ton of vacant houses. They're just sitting there. Big houses.
Beautiful houses.
Three, 4-bedroom houses just sitting vacant.
Mm-hmm. It's very strange. A lot of people have extra houses up here in the mountains. I think that, because we live in the mountains, it's very remote, that people will buy vacation homes up here. But then, things happen, life happens. They might have bought it cheap a long time ago. They don't care. The mortgage is low or there is no mortgage. So they just kind of keep them. So I love that we're surrounded by vacant houses, but as it is in reality, there is no housing shortage.
Nope.
We have many, many lovely homes right here sitting there waiting for someone to put them up for rent or for sale. What I do see is occasionally one will go up on the market for sale. Like one down the street from us went up for sale for a high price. It was 2 houses on one lot and nobody bid and they just took it off the market. I don't know what's going on with that house, but they just gave up. So
I'm
it's
also
still vacant.
I'm also we're seeing a lot of price cuts on when we look on Zillow. Not because we're seriously looking, but just to get an idea of what's actually going on out there. So
Right.
we are starting to see some glimmers of hope here. We're seeing cuts not just in for sale prices, but also rentals. We are starting to see the very beginnings of this. Now, this is going to take a long time for the end result to come, for this whole thing to pan out. But just seeing the beginning of it is, I think, good enough, because I remember doing videos in 2018 about the millennial meditation.
Yeah, we did a worldwide meditation for millennials to crash the housing market.
The worst was still yet to come at that point. We didn't know that, but it's just for so long, since basically around 2014 or so, been just going up. The price, not the values. So we've been waiting a long time for this bubble to burst, and we're just starting to see the very beginnings of that happening now. And
when
I say that's good news for most people.
When I look at the listings now for our zip code, I see price cut over. I mean, I'm seeing something's happening. The media is not telling us this. Something is happening.
In between the houses with price cuts on them, we're also seeing listings that have been up there for hundreds of days. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of days. That means they're just stagnating. No one's biting. No one's
too expensive.
No one's interested in overpaying. And even though they're hiding the history so that you can't see how much, they're trying to rip you off. Yeah. They've been doing that a lot lately too.
That truly is brother against brother. That's what the Bible tells us, and it's really sad. People are just trying to take advantage of each other, and pretty much almost everybody I know up here buys their house, owns their house, doesn't rent. It's not that common for people to rent up here because the houses were so cheap when we moved here. I mean, we could have bought one and got a mortgage. It was so cheap. It would have been even cheaper than renting for us to get a loan, but we just weren't here very long. We also didn't really, we don't really believe in that.
No, we didn't get married till 2017.
Yeah, and we don't believe in debt. So we try to stay debt free, and a mortgage is debt, but I do also understand that even when houses are cheaper, it's impossible for most people to get one without a mortgage. So it's kind of one of those forgivable kind of debts, but we didn't do it.
Now the Federal Reserve is lowering interest rates to ridiculously low levels.
Down to zero.
Just to encourage debt, to encourage all kinds of debt, because the system runs on debt. Yeah. It's so unjust. We just got, for our U.S. bank business bank accounts, just got offered just these insane lines of credit.
It's called a business platinum business platinum card from U.S. Bank. Anybody who has a U.S. bank account, the business account, like we
0% interest till April 2023, and guess what it is after that? 23%.
It's astronomical. It's like 23 or 24%. It's incredible. So what would happen is, if you did want to use it for something like a business expense, you would have to pay the piper eventually. So that's what's going on right now, is they want to lock everyone into debt. At the end of the last Mike Maloney video we just saw, there was this incredible quote, and I don't remember who it was from, but I totally recommend you start watching his videos if you're interested in protecting your wealth. And this isn't about being rich. This is we're not rich, but
This is about
want
not
to,
being stolen from.
exactly, because everybody works hard. We work very hard, and we want to reap the rewards of our labor. We want to reap the increase. That's what we're supposed to be able to do so we can live. So right now, we don't make enough money to buy gold and silver. Well, we make enough to buy silver, but I feel that we've done enough of that for now, because we did a lot in the past when we had a little extra to play with, when I had my nice job.
It was undervalued.
It was very cheap back then.
The fact is, it's still undervalued, but it
Yeah.
was much, much more undervalued 7-8 years ago when we were doing that.
There's this incredible quote. It said, "Gold is the money of kings. Silver is the money of gentlemen. Barter is the money of peasants. And debt is the money of slaves." So this really just hammered it home for me. And I think we've done everything right. I mean, sometimes I feel like I've done everything wrong because we do everything the opposite of everybody I know. I know a lot of people up here that have their own houses and they have mortgages. And then I'm getting older. I should have one by now. I used to a long time ago. I had a house and a mortgage. When I was 25, I bought a house. But that was a different era, and houses were much cheaper. And I bought a dumpy fixer-upper in Portland, and it was a wreck, and it took me 5 years to fix. So ultimately, that wasn't necessarily the best thing to do either, you know. But I see people doing things so different from me. And they have cars, they have big trucks that I can't afford. Well, I realized they bought it all with debt. And so here I am thinking, what am I doing wrong? I work hard. How come I'm, you know, in my 40s and I don't have the truck and the house and the acreage and all these things that people have? It's all debt.
You want to know how much total debt we have, both of us? That much. Nothing.
I won't do it.
Not a cent.
No.
Yeah, we can't do it. Another great quote that Mike Maloney mentions in one of his other videos from C.S. Lewis is, "When the entire world is running towards a cliff, he who is running in the opposite direction appears to have lost his mind."
Appears, but nothing is as it appears to be. So while Gabe and I might look different, although I would say that we don't really look different. We live in a house. We have a car. We have one car we share, but, you know, we take care of our stuff. We have a pet, one pet. We adopted a rescue horse almost 4 years ago. He's our darling pet. We love him dearly. And yes, it's an expensive pet, but I think that if people have, like, you know, a couple dogs and a couple cats, it costs about the same. So we just do things that kind of, like, we do it a little differently under the surface, but on the surface, we don't look that much different. So really nothing is as it appears to be, because God really does give us everything. The house we live in, this house right here that we're in, it's so beautiful. You know, it's tiny, but it's beautiful. And I don't even know how we found it, other than that God just guided us to it, because it's such a unique and unusual situation for lower income people to have a beautiful house like this. He's just been taking care of us. And you know that he will. He will. Just do what's right and follow his path, and he will take care of you. It's not about trying to, we're not encouraging investing or anything like that, because I don't know anything about it. And it's ultimately not what God wants for us. I am encouraging you to use God's money. God created gold and silver. Man created fiat currency.
Anyone can get silver.
Anyone. So Mike Maloney calls this well, actually, the economists call it an everything bubble. Mike Maloney calls it an almost everything bubble, because you can still buy gold and silver.
Yeah. Gold is out of reach, but silver,
for people who have, if you have a couple $1,000s,
yeah,
you can get an ounce of gold.
Gold is at around $18.30 or so an ounce.
And with the fees, it's going to be a little over $1,900 because they mark it up when they sell it. But if you have a couple $1,000s to spend, you can get an ounce of gold, and I think it's going to be worth $2,500 in a year, but I can't say for sure. At least it doesn't lose.
But that's not gold going up and down. That's the dollar going up
Right.
and down relative to it. Again, it's that price versus value thing. Gold and silver stay the same, but yeah, anyone can get silver right now. 1 ounce of silver is about $23. Filling up your gas tank costs more than that. A meal for two at a Thai restaurant or lunch specials, that costs more than that does.
Mm-hmm. A bottle of vodka costs more than an ounce of silver.
We're not encouraging anyone to drink. I mean, a lot of people have been drinking a little more for the last 2 years.
And if you're feeling depressed and you're drinking more, instead of buying that bottle of vodka, buy an ounce of silver. And then you'll feel a lot better because you'll have an actual hedge against inflation. What else? Oh, your cell phone bill. I guarantee you that costs at least 2 ounces of silver a month, but we don't use cell phones. We have an emergency cell phone plan that costs us $3 a month, and we use UMA, which is a voice over internet phone that plugs into the cable modem, or any modem, and that costs about $5 to $6 a month. So there are ways to save money, and don't use a cell phone if you don't have to. I really, really wish people would stop using them. I know everybody thinks they need to, but not only is it just brain numbing, but it is expensive. It's a pointless expense. For $3 a month, you can have one in case you get a flat tire or something. But silver is such a great idea, especially for lower income people, because anyone can do it. There's nobody who cannot come up with $25 for an ounce of silver. And if you can come up with a few $100s, you can get a few ounces of silver. I do project that silver is going to do even better than gold. I'm not an expert, but the people who are experts have given us plenty of data to show that it consistently outperforms gold.
The point is, you don't want to be in dollars, you don't want to be in stocks, and you don't want to be in an overpriced housing bubble that's going to burst at any moment.
And cryptocurrency is just like the dollar. It's
Not
fiat
that
currency.
either.
And just because, putting a hot girl on the screen, and I've seen other ones, not just on the interview on RT, but I saw something on Yahoo, and this girl was not even, I don't even think she was human. She seemed like a robot. She talked like a robot. She had long bleached blonde hair. I don't know if anybody saw that video. I don't remember her name, but she worked for an investment company, somebody who advises you and helps you put together a portfolio and all this stuff. And she's robotically kept just saying how you just got to buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. It's like, you put the girl next to the tool set, and then the guys are like, I got to buy those tools because I'll get the girl. I mean, it's just it's so obvious. Advertising, but they're doing it under the guise of news reporting. And I think that news is advertising for Bitcoin, advertising for vaccines. Buy a vaccine, buy Bitcoin, buy a house. It's just, you look at the news headlines.
It's all mind control.
They're telling you what to buy. And you know what? You can't even afford it. I mean, none of this, you can probably afford to buy some Bitcoin. You could probably afford to get a vaccination if that's what you want to do. But most people cannot afford a house. And I'm seeing article after article that tells you to buy one, and then things that tell you that no one can afford one. And all these despairing people that had their rent go up by hundreds of dollars a month, or were unable to buy a house. It's impossible. It's completely out of reach, especially for millennials. And those are the people that need houses. Those are the people who have kids. So everything's just out of whack. It's a mess. And I really do suggest that you avoid all of these traps, because they're really heavy advertising right now, heavily advertising for you to get yourself in big, big trouble. So I'm not saying don't spend anything. I think if you are going to invest, I would say do it in something that you know can't lose.
One last thing to say here, just sort of words of reassurance. It is totally normal, completely normal to have parents who will not help you, even though it's completely within their means to do so. So if you're in that situation, like we are, you are not alone. The media will want you to feel like you're alone, but you're not.
I actually looked up articles about this because we're of an age group where we really do deserve, I think, to have our own house. And I think that most people do deserve to have their own house once they're working and being productive. But a lot of times it requires family help to get started. For my parents, I know for a fact that my grandparents helped them get started. And I know also in Gabe's family, that's what happened. But unfortunately, most of the baby boomer generation, and I'm not saying this across the board because I don't want to start this generation war. I'm not like that. I have a lot of my good friends are actually of that generation. I hang out with people in their 60s. So it's not like a generational war. And I know many people of that age group that love their children and help them. But it does seem to be, what I've read is that over 50% of that generation plans to spend all their money and not leave anything to their kids, which, that's their prerogative. But in the past, it was customary to help one's children. And of course, now it's not the case. And a lot of that generation is reverse mortgaging their houses, which simply means, and this is another way that people get into debt, it simply means, let's say they bought their house for $200,000, like 30 years ago, and now it's worth, it's not really worth more, but the dollar amount says now it's worth $1 million. So they take out a loan on that value or that price. And so now they have all this money to play with, and they're going to never use it up for the rest of their lives because they're only going to live another 20 years.
And guess what the collateral is? The house.
Right. And then when they pass away,
the bank takes it.
The bank takes it because, of course, the kids can't pay for it. So this is what a lot of people are doing. They are selling out their children's future. It's not across the board, but you're not alone if your parents are doing this to you. I've read a lot of articles about it because I was wondering, is it me? Is it us?
It's not.
It's not. It's
Take a deep breath. It's happening. It's happening to the two of us, and it's happening to thousands of people of our age range. I'm 36, Sharon's 46.
Yeah, and it's not like anything to feel ashamed about. And I'm not saying it's happening across the board, but the news articles I see, they're weighted heavily towards the boomer perspective, saying, oh, they can't afford to help their kids or whatever. I mean, the kids, like, a lot of times they just need like maybe, $20,000 or $30,000 to help towards a down payment on a house or something like that. But anyway, a lot of parents think that if they help their kids, that the kids are going to be lazy or whatever, but they had that help. So it's kind of strange. And I read another article that the wealthy families have kept the wealth in the family by being honest with their children about that wealth and making sure to pass it on. So what we have is probably what it's going to be like is that generation is going to die off and all their money is going to go with them. But since it's all fictional anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's not that we can't take care of ourselves. It's not that anybody in their 30s and 40s can't take care of themselves. We can do it. It would be nice to have family support. It would feel comforting to know that there's that kind of bond and closeness, that they care. But it really isn't that way anymore, but it's totally normal if this is happening to you. So yeah. I wasn't even going to bring that up, but
I wasn't
it's an interesting
going to
point,
either, but I want people in our situation to understand that they are not alone, because they're being told that they are, but that is a lie.
And if you can't afford a house, if you're in your 30s or 40s and can't afford a house, I actually know people even in their 50s that they're a little in despair about it actually, because they work 2 full-time jobs. Everything's done right. It should be working for them, but they can't buy a house either. So
I can beat that. I know someone in his 80s that is still renting.
I know him too. So it does happen. So, it doesn't mean we can't live, and it doesn't mean we won't do fine. And I do think there's going to be a wealth transfer. So anybody who is despairing now, you can come out on the right side of things. Remember, God takes care of everything. And if you use God's money, which is gold and silver, he made it for us, you will come out on the right side of the wealth transfer. So anybody who has anything to invest now, I'd say it's not too late to get in, especially silver. It's ridiculously undervalued. I think
and underpriced.
It's a great idea. So that's the one thing I think that anybody can get involved in where you don't have to worry about losing. You might not see the crazy gains that you would if you know the right stock and the right time to sell, or get Bitcoin at the right time and sell at the right time. But that's gambling.
Yeah, and that's unjust anyway. We should be withdrawing our support from that. That's what's going to bring it down, is by not supporting it anymore.
And that is gambling. You don't know if it's going to work. But what we're talking about is something that has stood the test of time for thousands and thousands of years. So I highly recommend it. And I don't know anything about Bitcoin. I know people have made money at it, but I can't get involved with another type of currency. I'm trying to get out of that. And we have very, very little currency. So I think that works better.
I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Human Frequency. Our website, once again, is www.thekembo.com. We've got links to all sorts of things, our frequently asked questions. We've got wonderful articles by Sharon and our Organite shop.
We have a discount code right now through the 14th, which is Valentine22. And that works in the United States. So if you're in the US, you can get free shipping with that. And also I have marked down all of my heart-shaped jewelry for people and pets. So you can get pendants right now, Organite pendants for $25 and $20 for your pet, which is pretty cheap. So those also work as keychains. So if you're looking for a last-minute Valentine's gift for your special someone, I just want to let you know that in the US, put in the code Valentine22 and get free shipping.
And thank you to everyone for your support. We appreciate it beyond words. We will see you again next time.